Good day, everyone. This is Mark Vella, and you're listening to Headline News. US and Europe reach agreement to suspend tariffs. Addressing Beijing's challenge is key. The European Union and the United States reached a 4-month interim agreement on Friday, March the 5th, under which they suspended punitive tariffs related to the Boeing-Airbus subsidy dispute. European and U.S. officials have said that addressing the challenges posed by Beijing is key, and thus the U.S. and Europe need to reconcile. On Friday, U.S. President Joe Biden spoke on the phone with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. In a joint statement issued after the call, von der Leyen said, "President Biden and I agree to suspend all our tariffs imposed in the context of the Airbus-Boeing disputes, both on aircraft and non-aircraft products, for an initial period of 4 months." The White House said Biden emphasized his support of the European Union and his commitment to revitalizing the U.S.-European partnership. The Office of the United States Trade Representative noted that the Chinese Communist government has made it a priority option to break decades of U.S.-European dominance of the global aviation market, and that a rapprochement between Europe and the United States is needed to meet the challenge posed by Communist China. A European official also said that the development of transatlantic aviation industry standards for the airline industry to deal with the Chinese Communist Party is a key goal. So the two sides agreed and issued a statement earlier than expected, because Biden's trade representative nominee, Catherine Tai, has not yet been confirmed. Von der Leyen stressed, "We both committed to focus on resolving our aircraft disputes based on the work of our respective trade representatives. This goodwill gesture is aimed at laying the groundwork for negotiations to permanently resolve the dispute through the development of joint rules for subsidized aviation." According to the joint statement, the 4-month suspension of tariffs will cover $7.5 billion in EU exports to the United States, including aircraft, wine and jams, coffee, cheese, pork, screwdrivers, and other tools, and $4 billion in U.S. exports to the EU, including aircraft, tobacco, sweet potatoes, vodka, tractors, and more. The agreement, reached after intense negotiations between the two sides, suggests that the 16-year transatlantic trade war over government subsidies for Airbus and Boeing may be coming to an end, according to people familiar with the matter. Airbus welcomed the decision to suspend tariffs. The company said it supports all necessary actions to create a level playing field and continues to support a negotiated settlement of this long-standing dispute to avoid lose-lose tariffs. Boeing also said it hopes the agreement to suspend tariffs for 4 months will enable negotiations to bring a level playing field to this industry. It is reported that just a day before the U.S. and Europe agreed to suspend punitive tariffs for 4 months on March the 4th, the U.S. and Britain issued a statement saying that the U.K. and the U.S. would suspend tariffs for 4 months, take decisive steps together to resolve this long-running dispute at the WTO, and begin to seriously address the challenges posed by non-market economies, such as China becoming participants in the civil aviation market. Texas State Representative urged the government to renew the border wall and name it President Donald J. Trump Wall. Texas State Representative Brian Slayton filed a bill on March the 4th proposing that the Texas Department of Public Safety, DPS, continue construction of a border wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, naming Texas's own U.S.-Mexico border wall President Donald J. Trump Wall. According to Texan's website, Texas Congressman Slayton introduced a bill on Thursday the 4th to ask the Texas DPS to step in and continue to complete the construction of the border wall between the United States and Mexico. In a statement, Slayton wrote that President Trump fought to bring real border security and was opposed by Republicans and Democrats in Congress. It is time for Texas to stand up and finish the work that President Trump started. Let's finish building the border wall now, he added. The bill requires the Department of Public Safety to build the Texas portion of the wall to the same standards and specifications as the federal government's wall, which will be named the President Donald J. Trump Wall. U.S. Army Chief of Engineers Todd Semonite said at a public event last August that they had raised enough money for the project to build 733 miles of border wall. Building a border wall between the United States and Mexico to keep the country safe was a campaign promise when Trump ran for office in 2016. Before the Trump administration left office, the U.S. federal government had completed 450 miles of border wall, but construction was halted just hours after the Biden administration took office, leaving hundreds of miles of border wall still incomplete. Democratic Representative Henry Cuellar of Texas said in a statement released a few days ago that we are weeks, maybe even days, away from a crisis on the southern border. I urge the Biden administration to work with and listen to the communities along the southern border that are directly responding to these large flows of refugees on this issue. Inaction is simply not an option, he added. Our country is currently unprepared to handle a surge in migrants in the middle of the pandemic. Cuellar said that more than 10,000 illegal immigrants have been apprehended in the past week at a single border area in Texas. He added that some 2,500 illegal immigrants have been apprehended in the past 2 days since the press statement was released. Britain to release biggest review since the end of the Cold War. Aircraft carrier deployed in the Indo-Pacific to counterbalance the Chinese Communist Party. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson will release his biggest review since the Cold War on March the 16th, explaining the British government's key national policies as it enters the post-Brexit era and mentioning that Britain will return to the Indo-Pacific region and build a democratic alliance to counter the Chinese communist threat. Johnson emphasized that the report is the biggest review of our foreign, defense, security, and development policy since the end of the Cold War. According to internal British government documents, the British government will focus on increasing investment in countering the Chinese Communist Party, especially in the area of cybersecurity, in order to better analyze and respond to the systematic challenge posed by the CCP. The UK will also be actively involved in higher-level Indo-Pacific affairs and will regularly deploy force to overseas areas to improve detection, deterrence, and countermeasure capabilities against defense threats. The British government announced at a recent press conference that the Royal Navy's HMS Queen Elizabeth R-08 aircraft carrier strike group is expected to deploy to the Pacific Ocean this spring. British officials have also said that HMS Queen Elizabeth's overseas deployment route may include the South China Sea, which is considered a territorial sea by the CCP. The review was originally scheduled to be released at the beginning of 2020, but has been delayed due to the prolonged impact of the COVID-19 outbreak. The UK will also release what is known as a Defense White Paper on March 22nd, which will provide additional information on the military's approach in the next few years. Since the CCP unilaterally tore up the Sino-British Joint Declaration, the One Country, Two Systems exists in name only, and since July last year, the Hong Kong version of the national security law has been pushed in Hong Kong. The relationship between Britain and China has undergone a drastic change and taken a sharp turn for the worse. The recent revocation of the license of CGTN, the CCP's major outreach network, and the acquisition of at least 17 well-known private schools in the UK by Chinese companies have caused great concern in the UK. One of the Chinese companies even publicly claimed that the acquisition of British schools was part of the CCP's One Belt, One Road strategy to expand Beijing's global influence. A new study led by Joe Johnson, the Prime Minister's younger brother and former Minister of State for Universities, Science, Research and Innovation, reveals that more than one-fifth of high-impact research projects in the UK, about 20 research themes, are collaborations with China, and many are in the science and technology category. In addition, in highly sensitive areas such as automation, telecommunications, and materials science, more than 30% of the reports are Sino-British partnerships. The Financial Times revealed that the total number of academic articles co-authored by British and Chinese researchers, which was only 750 in 2000, and accounted for 1% of the UK's academic article production, had increased to 16,267 in 2019, or 11%. Given the close cooperation between British universities and China on research in sensitive areas such as science and technology and telecommunications, it deeply affects the British national security. The report therefore calls on the British government to urgently improve this oversight mechanism and to pay close attention to the academic links with the authoritarian regime. This concludes today's broadcast. Thank you for your time, and stay tuned for the next headline news.